Hey, welcome to Outpost Gray, a YouTube channel designed to help provide you with information through interviews and education within the cybersecurity space to help you on your personal journey. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe, and you go ahead and slam that alert button so you stay up to date for our weekly interviews and educational series. Today, I have the opportunity of interviewing a survivalist gone cybersecurity. And even more so, he has moved into the GRC space. My love. Stuart is also a veteran. He's a security analyst, and he's a founder of TechSec Scott, which we will dig into during this interview. I am super excited to have him on the show because his background is so unique. So during this episode, he's going to share his background of how he went from training and doing survival trainings in the woods to then moving into the GRC space. So stay tuned for that. Hey, Stuart, what's up? Welcome. How are you? I'm so excited to have you here. Are you ready for this?
I am. Thank you very much for having me.
It is my pleasure. The reason that you are here on the show was because of the article that I saw that I loved. I was waking up early one morning, and you're about 6 hours ahead, right?
Yeah, when I wrote it was 7. We were on British summertime, but yeah,
okay.
6.
I think you had just posted this article that day. I go into my LinkedIn, and glad that I did, because I saw this article that you had written about how I got over the experience wall. And you put a little blurb at the top of your LinkedIn post about the article. And then you're like, if you want to read the rest, click on the link in the first comment. You taught at a survival school, unpaid apprentice for 5 years. And then I'm like,
that's correct.
Yeah. And then I was like, I have to learn more about this. And then I'm like, I read your article, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have him on the show, because your background, which we are going to dig into and I'm excited about, is so diverse and so different. Yet you found a way to break into the cybersecurity industry. And so many people who have, bachelor's degree in computer science are having struggles. So share a little bit about that survival school training, and like a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're at, about how 5 years of an unpaid apprenticeship. Why doing that?
I started off with a company, just a one-man in Scotland. I went to a meet, just a bushcraft meet, where it was meeting like-minded people. He, at one point of that meet, he held up 2 rabbits and says, "Who wants to do a demonstration on these?" I'd never done a rabbit before, but I'd watched a video on how to do it like a couple of days earlier, and I thought, you know what, nobody else has volunteered, so I did it. And I stood up in front of about 25 people and demonstrated how to take a rabbit apart, and then through the process of doing it in front of that group. And he offered me a job on the spot.
Oh my gosh.
I worked with him. It was quite quiet. We didn't have too much work, but we had enough to get out in the woods and just experience it. Enjoyed it. And then he merged with a rather large company and asked if I would like to join them. And I did. And the process for that was to do a 2-year course, which was 17 weekends in the woods over the course of 2 years. And from tracking to advanced shelter building, bow making, we covered out all sorts of stuff. I absolutely loved it. And during that process, they asked me if I would come on to do the apprenticeship, and I agreed. And I stayed there for 5 years. And it was only COVID that really stopped me from doing it. I'd probably still be there today if it wasn't for COVID.
So it sounds like you broke into not just not just one, but 2 industries here, because you broke into this industry simply by, again, raising your hand saying, I'll do it when nobody else wanted to do it. And then next thing you know, you're a survival school instructor for, wow. So you didn't have a background in it at all prior to that?
Well, it was the military.
Okay.
So I'd done, in fact, in the military, it wasn't very much, but I enjoyed reading about it. I enjoyed watching programs about it. And I spent probably a great deal of time watching that sort of thing. And it just hooked me. And I love so when I had the chance to go to that meet and meet people that were like-minded, I thought, yeah, let's go and do it.
Yeah, you have to be able to love the outdoors, and you mentioned that in your article about like you really loved being outdoors. And I'm going to actually bring up this article and share it a little bit. So right here, you talk about I lost it. It was there, and now it's gone. My passion for the outdoors was the driving factor for taking this apprenticeship. So are you somebody that can just kind of go out into the woods and just be kind of like left alone and that's okay? You're kind of in your zen?
Yeah, well, I spent probably the first 20 odd years of my life being a fisherman. My dad took me fishing when I was a kid, and I got stuck right into that, and I've been doing that for years. I don't do it so much these days, but yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. Camping, cooking by the water. Yeah, I love being outside.
I love that. I love being outside too. I'm like a huge outdoor person. I love hiking. I am actually going to a trip to South America this December by myself. I know some people and it's in a safe area. It's in a, like it's not like, I'm going to Colombia or anything. But I'm going but not to do any surfing, but to be in the jungle away from everybody and everything. Cause I'm not really a beach or water person per se. I am like a lake if there is water and just mountains and animals. And I just I like to camp, preferably with cause I'm military as well. And I don't like sleeping on the ground at all. Yeah, not anymore. No, hard pass on that. So when you were doing the survival school, then are you able to teach people how to track? Is that part of the survival school?
It is, yeah. So
cool.
Part of the 2-year course there was one weekend where we did tracking, and I absolutely loved it. I was finding blood trails. I was finding all sorts of stuff, and the instructor was impressed with me. And when I came on as apprentice, I asked if I could go on a course with him, apprentice, and I did that and really loved it again. Going on from that, I got the chance to go to South Africa the first time as part of that company to learn what's the cyber tracker assessment. You do 2 weeks of training and then do an assessment at the end. It's the same assessment that the guides and the game rangers out in South Africa do. And I think it was 89% on the first assessment.
Wow.
I absolutely loved it out there. Animals from their feet. So I learned their feet first before I actually knew what the animal was. And then I went back 2 years later and did the same thing again and got 98%. I got one track wrong. I'm gutted. I've got to go back again to get 100%.
Oh my gosh. So I don't want to jump too far ahead yet, but do you do any of the survival training stuff now, or is that just completely off to the side and you don't have time for it?
Well, since COVID, all the courses, when the restrictions lifted a little bit, I started to go back out again. I did a tracking course where I was teaching people down in Oxford in England, and then I did a school booking up in Scotland for quite a few kids. And after that, I took a step back.
Yeah, you did scuba too?
No, not scuba, no.
Oh, I thought you said scuba gig. Okay.
No, school booking.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool.
Teaching kids.
Got it. Okay. So let's scroll down a little bit more in this article because this is a really in-depth article. So as I'm reading through this, you were just talking about COVID as it affected so many of us, and a lot of people lost their work, lost their jobs and had to find new work. And some of them couldn't find new work. And reading through this, you were having your own set of struggles as well with this, trying to figure out what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? And if I remember correctly, you started watching a lot of YouTube. Yep. Great deal of cybersecurity content on YouTube while researching the subject for my course. So what was the motivation? It was your cybersecurity position to kind of start going down that path. Because this starts getting into your pivotal point, but what was that pivotal point for you to start moving into that direction?
Well, I was looking for something that I could potentially move into. I was in physical security at the time. I'd spent 5 years as a doorman on the doors of Edinburgh. Things were getting a little bit rough, and I'm starting to get a little bit old. I'm not as young as I used to be. Things start to her after 9 hours. Yeah, I've been looking to move on from physical security for a while. When COVID happened, I found myself sitting at home, potentially not having a job in a few months' time, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And I was lucky enough to find an advert from a previous instructor of mine who taught me the physical side of security and CCTV. He put up an advert for a new company he was working with for a HNC, and it turned out that I qualified for funding for this course. And I contacted him and says, I'd really like to do it. And he got me signed up, and I started 3 days later. It was awesome.
Yeah, there was an incident that happened to you when I remember reading the article, and there was an incident that you were talking about that had transpired, that was really kind of your turning point, right? You were outside somewhere and you had to like take somebody down. Can you like talk a little bit about that? Because that was pretty intense. I was like, oh my gosh. And like you said, we're getting older, and you're like, okay, that was where you were like, okay, I'm basically too old for this crap. This has got to stop.
Yeah. I'm still fairly young, but I'm not in the physical condition I used to be. And I don't want to be tussling with people. So I got a call on the radio. It was saying that a venue needed assistance. There was somebody causing problems. I went up there, and the guy was outside at that point. And I stood on the door and waited for him to leave. He was not in a very fit state, but he tried to come back into the venue. On the fourth time of him trying to come back, I stopped him without touching him, using non-violent communication to essentially get him to go away. And on the fourth time, he came back and he just tried to assault me. And I defended myself and relocated his head a little bit, put him on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would shake anybody right there. And it's like, if nobody's ever been in an altercation, they don't know that feeling. And it's like, especially when you're just like at a point in your life where like, I really want to do something else other than this. And that was kind of your like aha moment. And I was like, because I can relate on different levels of that, where it's like, okay, it's time to like, for me, hang up that uniform in a lot of ways for militaries. It's time for us to move into a different environment, different space, different career field. It could be something similar for military, but for you, you took the pivot. So you had a friend, they gave you an opportunity, they gave you an inch basically, and you like threw that door open. So you started, what I noticed is you really started digging into the YouTube, and you started doing a lot of your own self-paced, self-training and teaching yourself. Can you talk a little bit about like, what did you, outside of like YouTube, or let's dig into the YouTube. What were some of the areas that you started getting into in YouTube that you started enjoying, or did it feel really just overwhelming at first and you were just trying to take it all in and figure out where you wanted to go?
YouTube was kind of overwhelming. I didn't really know where to start with. YouTube, some stuff on penetration testing, and that kind of got me interested. And I love how fast people could crack passwords, and the process of learning about that and going through that sort of process. And in the process of doing that, I started learning about different certifications that I could take. And it was actually a TikTok video that I watched on different cybersecurity certifications, and the Comp Plus it kind of hit at the time when I was looking for work, because I was hoping that the HNC was going to get me a job, and it didn't. It was in no way enough training or knowledge to be able to get myself a job. Companies were just looking for more, and a HNC is 2 levels below a bachelor's degree in America. Would be the first course that you would do at university in your first year.
Okay.
So it's not a very high level, but it's higher than school. And I really enjoyed the course, but it just didn't give me enough knowledge and information to be able to move on. So I started on the CompTIA Security Plus. I purchased a course off Udemy for £30, I think it was. And because the HNC didn't give me enough knowledge, it took me 3 months to get through that course. I watched 19 hours of video 3 times, and I took quite a lot of practice. Yeah, the subject is just so wide. It doesn't cover anything in very much depth, but it's just so wide that it was really hard for me to take in all that knowledge. So every practice test I was doing, it was coming back at around about 60%, and it's an 80% pass mark. So I knew I had to get more, and I refocused myself on that. I started taking notes of the questions I was getting wrong on the practice exams, and then studying those specific areas. And it worked. It took me 3 months, but yeah, I loved it. It was good.
3 months to get through your CompTIA Security Plus. So you took the test, you passed the test.
Yes.
Yep. And you went through the Udemy course 3 times. That is amazing. That is awesome.
And I read the book as well.
And you read the book as well. So you're kind of like me when it comes to studying. Like I can't just study one way. Like I can't just watch videos, or I can't just read a book. Maybe you're the same on the writing. I actually have to see, do, and the do is right. So for me, writing papers is how I learn the best. So having instruction helps, reading helps, but writing it, then I know for a fact that I know the subject, because I've literally had to reconstruct it on a piece of paper. And that's the best way to help me learn. And it can be really hard in this space because you don't, unless you are willing to create your own learning style. The learning styles that are out there are typically the test and then just watching it or reading it. So I had to start learning by like writing and doing blogs and doing hands-on to start understanding and digesting it. So anybody it's like listening or watching this right now, maybe having some struggles, try different ways of learning. If you're watching it, try reading the book, try maybe writing, doing the repeated test over and over again. And then for you, when you started taking the test, when did you realize, okay, now I know enough that I'll go and take the test and I can pass it? Was it 80%? Were they 90%? And then you're like, okay, I'll go take the test now.
Yeah. So there was a great resource that I used was examcompass.com, and it's just absolutely full of questions on CompTIA. So A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. I think at the time for the 501, they did 800 practice questions, and I went through half of them. And when I was getting to that stage, I then went back over the ones I was getting wrong, and then resat the rest of them. So I was getting high 80s, mid 90s to the CompTIA test.
Perfect. That's awesome. During the course, you started talking about how you learned about the GRC space, and this sparked your interest. And I actually just did kind of a recent, we'll just call it a career pivot into the GRC space in July or August. And so pivoting into this space, it's been really interesting. It is a lot. You probably realize there's just so much. But I want to dig a little bit with that on you for GRC. This kind of sparked your interest, potential route for you. Do you still enjoy the GRC space, or like, what are your thoughts around that area now?
I love it.
Me too.
It's either you love it or hate it. And I absolutely love it. I'm doing it full time now, and I love it.
What's your favorite?
I'm currently in charge.
What's your favorite like framework that you dig into? Or is there one that you use the most, or do you use frameworks in what you're doing in your line of work?
So we do use frameworks. The main one is all centers around is ISO 27001, but it's not strictly that. There are other ones as well. That's currently my professional role, but there are all sorts of different other ones that they do. But the one I actually love is the one that got me cyber, was Cyber Essentials in the UK. And basically, when I left the bushcraft and survival stuff, I put up a post thanking them for their time and for their investment in me. And somebody that I knew commented on that post saying that they were looking for some information on cybersecurity, because that's what I said I was moving into. So I contacted him outside of that post and said, how can I help you? And information on how he can keep his own personal data safe, but then also how he can keep his business safe as well. It was him and one other person, and he works in the woods, so he only has one computer. So he was just looking for a bit of advice. So I actually went way over and above. I wrote 2 documents. One was 7 pages long and one was 9 pages long.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But once I started getting into it and writing this advice, I really wanted to give him the best advice possible. Had a question, he could come back to that document and reference it in the future. And I did that. And then once I'd done that, I thought, this is really good. I could potentially use this for experience. And I contacted somebody else that I knew who was the head of sales at a penetration testing company and said, can you have a look at this? And what do you think I can do with it? And he loved it, and he thought it was excellent. And he actually showed that work to the CEO of that company and asked me to have a meeting. And he asked me to help them through the Cyber Essentials framework in the UK. To get government work in the UK, you have to go through that process. So he asked me to help him take the company through. They were perfectly capable of doing it themselves. They just didn't have the time to do it. So I did it. I took the requirements from the framework and I wrote a complete gap analysis on that document, or on that, asking the company loads of different questions and helped them through the answers to that. And using that gap analysis, he went off and did the assessment and got the certification. So that was brilliant. That was my very first piece of work in cyber.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love this story because you went out there, you not only created, like, for technical people, you talk about creating labs, but for GRC, there's nothing that is easy to say, go create a lab, go do this to show your work. If you don't have hands-on experience. I'll take a step back for anybody that's wondering why I'm saying that, but it's really hard to get in this industry without a hands-on experience. So it's always like, go create a lab, go create a GitHub, do all of these things to show your work, do that stuff. But it's hard to do that in the GRC space. And I remember reading that in this article and I was like, that is such a great idea. So you pretty much created a lab and you showed your work and you were hired on. And then what you got to do was put all of the knowledge and skills that you had been training on to good use to put, now you have past performance, or you have performance in the GRC space. You've got experience and you could put that on your resume. You had the rejection. And then what you did is you built out all of your documents, and then you've got this job right here. But was this the job that you stayed on permanently for, or was it a term?
No. This was just was volunteer work. He said, I can't pay you for it, but it'll help you get some experience. And at the time, I was on leave from work at that point. It was just on a week or two's leave, and I had a couple of days spare. So I thought, you know what, I'll use it as experience and I'll do it. Right. But the next day after I submitted that document, he contacted me at 7 o'clock in the morning and says, "Are you up?" And I says, "Yeah, I am. What can I help you with?" And he says, "I need your help." I says, "I've got a contract that I've taken on for a financial services company in America, a gap analysis for them currently at the moment, but I'm really struggling. So I've got to this point. Can you help me go or figure out where I need to go from here?" And I did. I said, "Send me over what you've got, and I'll look at it, and I'll try and learn, and then we'll come from there." So he sent me everything over. And I then spent the next couple of hours researching FFIEC, which is a framework from America that I'd never even heard of. And I learned the requirements of that, figured out what he'd done and how it was good. But the only thing that he was struggling with, he didn't have anything to point at. He had no policies. So I then spent the rest of that day, I think it was 12 hours, where we did, myself and 3 members of his team, put 12 policies together in one day.
Wow.
I created the framework. I created the template. I set everything out that I could, and then set his guys on the rest of the policies. I took 4 of them, and between the rest of them, they took the other ones.
What a great learning experience. That is amazing. Wow. That is such a great idea. It's like, volunteer is such a great way of doing it. Volunteer somehow. Ask somebody if you can do a side-by-side as they're doing like an assessment, a gap analysis, creating policies, any of those things, so you can start becoming familiar with the space. So you can actually just put down on your resume, you can even put down apprentice instead of saying volunteer, which is very similar, just sounds better.
So I actually got paid for that job as well.
Wow, you got paid for that one.
I got paid twice as much as I was earning in a week.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
on my normal job for that.
Wow.
It was brilliant. I loved it.
That is amazing. So that was the shorter stint one, right? That wasn't still full-time employment, but
Yeah, that was just contracting work.
yeah. So you were on contracting work, and then are you contracting right now, or you're in a
No, I'm
full-time? That's
employed.
what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
So your current company, was that the next step, or did you do more contracting work after that last?
it was the next step. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had actually applied for this job that I'm currently in prior to doing that on my resume, and being in the job now, I've spoken to the manager and the manager's boss who both interviewed me. They actually rejected my CV, but it was a filtering phone call that I'd had with one of their HR representatives who said, "This guy's actually pretty good. You need to speak to him." And I had the first interview with the hiring manager, and yeah, she loved me and basically told her boss that she wanted me.
Oh my God, I love that. So did you call the HR person then because it was rejected? Did you just give them a call and you're like, hey, no, I need to talk to you about this?
No, I didn't. They contacted me. She just wanted to double check that they hadn't missed anything, because I don't think they got that many good candidates for the job, and which is a great thing about GRC. There's not that many people that are good at it or know what it is or are looking for it. So I think she was going back through the rejected CVs to just check, have we missed anybody that could be potentially pretty good? And yeah, she flagged me.
Oh my gosh, congrats on that. That's huge. I'm so happy that happened, because that happens so many times that your resume is going to get filtered by a bot or an AI incorrectly, and then you don't get the job. But it sounded like the HR person, they needed candidates. She probably was smart enough to know that happens more times than not, and to reach out to you and give you a chance. And that's such a great story that you don't get to hear a lot.
Yeah.
So now you're in the space. You've finally got you've broken in. You're in the industry now. How do you feel? Do you like the GRC? You do. You just said, I love GRC. So I'm assuming this is where you're going to stay for a little while and just kind of dig in, right? Yeah. You're happy here, I'm hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that they asked me in my interview was, where do I see myself in 5 years? And I couldn't give them an answer. I basically said the first thing is get my feet under the desk and learn the job, start making improvements on what I need to improve. Second year, maybe progress in the company a little bit if I can. And then in 5 years' time, I don't know. We shall see. But he loved the commitment. And that is one thing that I would say to anybody looking to move into a job is, if a company is asking you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Don't say that you are looking to move into a different career part of cyber. If you're applying for a GRC job, tell them that you are looking to improve in GRC, and then try and be a pen tester. Everyone wants to be a pen tester, but they need people in GRC. So, and they're looking for that commitment from you. If they don't get that commitment, you're not going to get the job.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point. And it, honestly, be honest with them too. You seem like a very honest person. I think that comes out. And I think that is why that the HR person met with you and was like, wow, we really need to talk to this person. Because another thing, especially in the GRC space, I think in any of the industries, but I'm seeing a lot in the GRC space, is don't lie if you don't know something, because there's a lot of different frameworks. You were just talking, you had a framework get thrown at you that you'd never heard about, that was from the US, that you had to research and learn. And there's going to be stuff like that in the GRC space, and especially understanding different compliance frameworks. It's hard. You're not going to memorize all the controls. And so be upfront. Yeah, it's impossible unless you just have that type of brain. I mean, maybe you do. I'm learning NIST 171 and 53 right now, and I'm pretty confident in knowing how, like, the controls and stuff like that. But if somebody asked me a specific control number, I'd be like, I have no idea. I would go and research it. So it's okay to say you don't know, but especially in the GRC space, you got to be able to research, know if there's been a new revision that's come out. I know 53 has a revision. A lot of people are still using. I have like that unique mind where I'm like, no, it's revision 5, and I see revision 4 still out there, stuff like that. Because there's small tweaks that you have to be aware of to keep your clients compliant. So I love this space. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that you've gotten into the industry. Now I've got a GRC buddy and we can nerd out together. So Stuart, what do you have on the
Oh,
docket
absolutely.
for like big things coming up for yourself? Are you, you're a big writer, you know, I encourage anybody that's listening and watching this, go to your website and check out his articles. Check out this article in particular. It's a good one. I would encourage you to go read it and learn more about his background. But are there any big things that you're planning on doing, like big initiatives? Or are you just going to stay kind of put where you're at and just like dig in, head down, and just educate for like the next year on the GRC space?
I'm digging in at the moment, but I do have plans to expand the TechSecScope website. There's a lot of stuff on there. I'd like to potentially introduce some training on there in the future. I don't know whether that's going to be GRC related or not, but it's potentially going to be some of that. Yeah, look to the website; it'll all be on there.
Yeah, and you say that people are starting to reach out to you for advice, you know, because you've made it, you've broke in. If there's anybody that's listening to this, watching this right now, that wants to reach out to you to just get advice and some feedback on, hey, what am I doing right or wrong to get into this space? Can you share your advice with them? What is the best way for them to be able to reach you?
LinkedIn's probably the best way, either that or through the website at TechSecScope.
Yep. And it will be Stuart W. And then otherwise, yep, check him out. The banner's down below. But for any of the listeners, once this goes into a podcast, it's just tech, just as it sounds, TECH, sec, like security, and then Scott, only with one T, Scott. So go and definitely reach out to him. Stuart, this is awesome. I am so excited that you were on the show, and I am thrilled to see where you go in the next year. We're going to have to do like another future show where you come on in the next year. And below, all of his socials will be down below. You can find him there, and then also find the article on how to learn a security framework fast. I need to read that too, Stuart. Is that on your website or just on LinkedIn?
It's on the website, under the blogs page on the website.
Okay, I will check that out. You guys need to go check out his site. It's awesome. And then follow him and link up with him, definitely. Stuart, you've been awesome. This has been great. Thanks again. Have a great day.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Jess.
If Stuart doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. Wow, I am so thrilled that he was part of the show. Please go ahead, find him, connect with him, message him, and reach out to us if you have any suggestions on individuals that you think would be great guests on the show. We love all of your feedback. And as always, thank you for subscribing and sharing this one with others. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again.